Hey guys, tonight we're journeying high into the Andes Mountains, to a world of thin air, sharp peaks, and a civilization that built an empire on the spine of the world. We are going back to the early 16th century, to the final, glorious years of the Incan Empire. It was one of the largest and most sophisticated empires on Earth, a highly organized society connected by a stunning network of roads, all without the use of the wheel, draft animals, or a written language as we know it. It was a world in perfect, delicate balance, and it was about to be shattered, not by an invading army, but by an enemy that was invisible, silent, and utterly unstoppable. Tonight, we're going to experience the brutal, tragic impact of European diseases on this isolated, magnificent world. And let's be honest, your chances of survival as an Inca are not just low, they're basically zero. Forget the smallpox for a second. Your daily life would probably do you in. Imagine your job is to be a relay runner, sprinting for miles at a time at over 10,000 feet of elevation, subsisting on a diet of potatoes, maize, and coca leaves. No weekends off. It's the ultimate high-altitude, low-carb nightmare. Low carb. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's a quiet and simple way to support the channel. And while you're at it, I'd love to see where and when you're tuning in from. Go ahead and drop your city and local time in the comments. It's always a little fascinating to see our community of history lovers spread across the globe. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your world is the road, and the road is the spine of the world. It is the Capac Ñan, the great Inca road, a marvel of engineering that stitches together the vast and powerful empire of Tawantinsuyu, the land of the four quarters. And you. You are a chasqui, a messenger, a runner. Your body is a vessel for information. Your leg's the engine that moves it across the empire with breathtaking speed. You are young, perhaps 18 years of age, chosen from your village for your strength, your speed, and your endurance. Your life is one of discipline and constant motion. You live not in one place, but in a series of small relay stations called tambos, spaced every few miles along the Great Road. You are a human baton, a single link in a vast, continent-spanning relay race. Today, you are running north from the sacred capital of Cusco. The message you carry is not a letter, not a scroll of parchment. You carry a quipu. It is a beautiful and complex object, a main cord from which hang dozens of smaller, color-coded strings made from llama or alpaca wool. Knots of various types are tied at specific intervals along these strings. It is a bundle of information, a three-dimensional spreadsheet that can record anything from the number of bushels of maize in a royal storehouse to the census data of a newly conquered province. You yourself cannot read the quipu. That knowledge is reserved for the specialists, the Quaipoca Mayocs, the keepers of the knotted strings. You are just the delivery system, the human envelope. For centuries, future scholars would believe the Quaipu was a simple accounting tool, a primitive calculator for a civilization without writing. But historians still debate this. They wonder if there is more hidden in these intricate knots. If the combination of color, spin, and knot type might represent a silent, tactile language, a lost form of narrative that no one can now decipher. For you, it is simply a sacred trust, a colorful, complex weight in the small bag at your side. The road beneath your feet is a masterpiece. In the highlands, it is a wide, paved highway of fitted stone, a ribbon of civilization laid across the wild mountains. It climbs impossible slopes not with gentle switchbacks, but with great, steep staircases carved directly into the rock face. Thousands of steps that would leave any horse or wheeled vehicle useless. This is a common historical fact. that baffles many. The Inca built one of the most advanced road networks in human history, over 25,000 miles of it. Without the use of the wheel, the reason is simple. The wheel was no match for the Andes. But your legs, conditioned by a lifetime in the thin air, your lungs burn. The high-altitude air is thin and sharp, but you are used to it. You have a small pouch of coca leaves at your waist, and you chew on a small wad of them as you run. They numb the fatigue in your legs and the ache of hunger in your belly. They are the fuel for the Empire's messengers. You run with a steady, loping stride. The rhythmic slap, slap, slap of your woven grass sandals, the only sound besides your own breathing and the cry of a condor circling high above. The landscape around you is a testament to the power and order of your world. The mountainsides have been transformed into great, sweeping staircases of terraced fields. The Andines, their stone retaining walls a work of sublime artistry. These terraces prevent erosion and create microclimates for growing different varieties of potatoes, maize, and quinoa. They are a triumph of engineering, a vertical agriculture that feeds an empire of millions. You pass a herd of llamas on the road, being driven by a herder. They are the Empire's beasts of burden. Their soft, intelligent eyes regarding you with a look of profound, philosophical indifference. They seem to know they are the true masters of these mountains. You are just a temporary, hurried creature, running through their vast, cold living room. Your section of the relay is nearly over. You see the next tambo ahead, a small stone building with a thatched roof, nestled in a curve of the road as you approach. You blow a sharp blast on the conch shell trumpet you carry, a signal to the next runner that you are coming. He is already waiting for you outside the tambo, a young man just like you, already bouncing on the balls of his feet, ready to go. There is no time for conversation. You hand him the quipu. He takes it, nods, and without a word, he is off, running north, the knotted strings flying in his hand. Your job is done. The message continues its journey, passed from runner to runner, and will cover the 100 to 500 miles from Cusco to the northern capital of Quito in a little over a week, a speed that will astound the horse-mounted Europeans when they arrive. You enter the tambo. It is simple, clean, and well-stocked. This is the Incan way. The state, the Sapa Inca, provides. There is a fire burning, a pot of potato and quinoa stew simmering over it. There is a stack of blankets for sleeping. There is a large clay pot filled with chicha, a sour, mildly alcoholic beer made from fermented maize. You eat your fill and drink the chicha. The familiar taste, a welcome comfort. The state-sponsored catering is not exciting. It's always potatoes and maize, but it is reliable. You are a cog in the great machine of the empire, and the machine takes care of its parts. You spend a day and a night at the tambo, resting, eating, and waiting for the next message to arrive from the south. The one you will carry back towards Cusco. You talk with the other two Chasquis stationed there. You trade news. You hear of a minor rebellion that has been put down in a distant province. You hear that the Sapa Inca, the divine emperor Huayna Capac, is still in residence with his armies in the north, near Quito. Securing the borders of his vast domain, the empire feels strong, eternal, unshakable. Your world is one of order, of reciprocity, of a great cosmic balance. The sun god, Inti, rules the heavens. His son, the Sapa Inca, rules the earth. The mountains are terraced, the storehouses are full, the roads are clear, and the messages are delivered on time. Everything has its place. Everything is as it should be after a few days of running south. You arrive in the great capital of Cusco, the navel of the world. The city is a marvel of stone, its walls made of massive, irregular stones fitted together with such impossible precision that not even a knife blade can be slipped between them. You deliver your quaipu to a minor official at the edge of the city, and your duties are done for the week. You are given leave to visit your family in your home village. A day's walk from the capital, Your village is a small, quiet place, a community of farmers. You are a hero here, the Chasqui, the boy who was chosen. You share the news from the capital. You eat your mother's cooking. A welcome relief from the endless diet of the road. It is here, in the comfort of your own home, that you first hear the story. An old man, a trader who sometimes travels to the coast to trade potatoes for dried fish and shells, has returned with a strange and disturbing tale. He says that far to the north, beyond the borders of the empire, a different kind of trader has been seen. These are men who arrive from the sea, on great wooden houses that float on the water. The men are pale, he says, with hair on their faces like a llama's fleece. They carry sticks that make the sound of thunder and spit fire. This part of the story is fascinating, but not unbelievable. The world is a large place, but it is the next part of his story that makes your skin crawl. He says that wherever these bearded men go, a terrible sickness follows, a sickness that has no name. It begins with a fever, and then the body erupts in foul. Weeping sores, it kills with terrifying speed, and the local healers have no charms or herbs that can stop it. He says entire coastal villages to the north have been wiped out. Their people turn to mounds of rotting flesh. You and the other villagers listen to his story. It is unsettling, but it is happening far away. To other people who are not the Inca, not the chosen children of the sun. It is a frightening tale, but it is just a story, a rumor from the edge of the world. It has nothing to do with you. Here in the strong, protected, and perfectly ordered heart of the empire, you dismiss it. The Sapa Inca is all-powerful. The gods are watchful. Your world is in balance. Nothing can touch you here. You say goodbye to your family and begin your walk back to Cusco. Ready for your next assignment. The sun is warm on your back. The road is solid beneath your feet. And the empire feels as eternal as the mountains themselves. The memory of the trader's tale fades with the last of the autumn leaves. Winter in the high Andes is a time of consolidation, of quiet, of turning inward. The great roads are still run, but the traffic is lighter. Your life as a Chasqui continues its relentless rhythm. You run, you rest, you eat the state's food, you wait for the next knotted string, the next message to be carried on the spine of the world. The empire feels as solid and as permanent as the great mountains themselves. It is in the spring that the whispers return. You are on a long assignment, a series of relays that takes you further north than you have ever been before, into the lands that are now part of modern-day Ecuador. The Sapa Inca, Huayna Capax, has spent years here with his armies, pacifying the northern frontier and establishing a second capital in the lush green valley of Quito. The air here is warmer, thicker than in the highlands around Cusco, and the people have a different accent, a different way of weaving their textiles. The further north you run, the more frequent the stories become. At the tambos, the relay stations where you rest, the other Chasquis speak of little else. They are no longer the fantastical, second-hand tales of a wandering trader. They are fresher, more detailed, and tinged with a new, more immediate fear. The runners coming up from the coast speak of villages where half the people have been struck down by a new sickness. They describe the symptoms. It is not the mountain fever, which brings chills and aches. It is not the lung sickness that comes with a damp cold. This is something new. It begins with a fire in the blood, a terrible fever that makes men speak nonsense. Then comes the rash, a cascade of small blisters that cover the entire body, from the soles of the feet to the inside of the throat. The blisters weep. They join together. They form a solid, agonizing crust, and then, more often than not, death follows. Your mind searches for a name for this disease, a category to place it in. There is none. Your healers, with their vast knowledge of herbal remedies and spiritual cleansings, have never seen this before. It has no name. It is simply the sickness. The scholars of a future time will give it a name, smallpox. They will debate whether it was a particularly virulent strain, or if measles or influenza arrived with it. A deadly cocktail of pathogens unleashed on a population with no immunities, no history of exposure, no inherited defense. For you, the academic debate is meaningless. All you know is that a new and terrible god of death has arrived on your shores. One day, while resting at a larger tambo that also serves as a market for local traders. You meet a man who has come from the coast near Manta. He is a merchant who trades fine highland textiles for the precious. Spiny oyster shells used in the most sacred rituals. His eyes are wide with what he has seen. He tells you more about the bearded men. He has seen one of their floating houses, a great wooden vessel with towering masts and white sails like the wings of a giant bird. He says the men are covered in metal, that they carry sticks that create thunder. He shows you what he received in trade for a piece of cloth. It is a small green bead of glass. You take it in your hand. It is perfectly smooth, perfectly round, and it catches the light in a way that no stone can. It feels strange, cold, and dead. It is a piece of another world, and holding it makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. You give it back to him quickly. The trader confirms the stories of the sickness. It follows them, he whispers, his voice low and fearful. They are not gods. They are carriers of death. They are the source of the pestilence. This becomes the prevailing theory. The bearded men are the cause. The connection is too clear to ignore. A few days later, the rumors are transformed into something more official, more real. At a relay station high in the mountains, a runner heading south hands you a quipu. It is an urgent message, he tells you, from the governor of a northern province, destined for the Sapa Inca's court in Quito. The runner who hands it to you is young, like you, but his face is gray with fear. This one is different. He says it is not a record of tribute or of crop yields. It is a record of the dead. The governor of the Tumbes Valley sends a count of the dead from the sickness. You take the quipu. It feels no different from any other. A collection of knotted strings. But now you know what the knots represent. Each twist in the colored wool is a human life, extinguished by the new disease. You are no longer just a messenger. You are a courier of contagion statistics, the great road system, the pride of your empire. The thing that holds your world together is now functioning as the primary transmission vector for the news of its own destruction. As you run north with this grim data set in your pouch, you see the first signs of the empire trying to respond. But its response is spiritual, not medical. The Incan state did not have a concept of public health in the way you might understand it. Sickness was a spiritual matter, a sign of cosmic imbalance, of the displeasure of the gods. The Huacas, you see priests gathering at sacred sites along the road, at great rock outcroppings or by powerful rivers. You see them making offerings of coca leaves and maize flour, pleading with the local spirits to restore the balance. When you finally reach the outskirts of Quito, you witness a more significant ceremony. In a great public plaza, a group of high priests, their earlobes elongated by the weight of the golden ornaments that signify their high rank, are performing a divination. A pure white llama, the most sacred of animals, has been sacrificed. Its body lies on a stone altar. One of the priests has made a careful incision and has pulled out the animal's lungs. He holds them up, still inflated, to the light. Studying the patterns of the veins and the airways, he is trying to read the future, to understand the nature of this new evil. In the entrails of a dead animal, you watch this solemn, sacred act, and a part of you feels reassured by the power of the ritual, but another, smaller part of you, a part that has heard the stories from the coast, wonders if the answer to this problem lies in the lungs of a llama or on the strange, floating houses of the bearded men, You think the priest would have been better off keeping the llama for dinner? It would have been more useful. You deliver your quipu to an official at the royal court in Quito. The city is a bustling, magnificent capital, filled with soldiers, nobles, and artisans. The Sapa Inca, Huayna Capac, is in residence. But even here, in the very heart of the empire's power, you can feel a new, nervous energy. The rumors have reached the top. Officials speak in hushed tones. Guards seem more numerous, more watchful. Your job is done. You are assigned to a local tambo to await your next orders. You assume you will be carrying a response back south. Perhaps an order for more sacrifices. For a great religious festival to appease the angry gods. But the new orders are different, and they are terrifying. A high-ranking official from the emperor's own household summons you. He tells you that the Sapa Inca has heard the stories from the coast. He has seen the death counts on the quaipu you carried. He is deeply troubled. He needs a direct account. A report from a trusted source. He needs the eyes and ears of one of his own chaskis. He gives you your assignment. You are to run west, down from the highlands, into the hot, humid coastal plain. You are to travel to the Tumbes Valley, the very region from which the grim reports originated. Several villages there have gone silent. No traders have come from them. No messages have been sent. You are to go to these silent villages. You are to see what has happened to them. And you are to run back with a full report. You are no longer a simple mailman, a carrier of knotted string. You have been promoted. You are now a scout, a spy. You are being sent on a reconnaissance mission into enemy territory. But the enemy is not a rival tribe with spears and clubs. It is the sickness itself. You stand before the official, your heart pounding. This is a great honor. It is also, very possibly, a death sentence. To refuse is unthinkable. It is a command from the Son of the Sun, God himself. You accept the mission. You are given fresh sandals, a full pouch of coca leaves, and a supply of dried maize for your journey. The next morning, you set out, but you do not run east or south. On the familiar, safe highways of the highlands, you turn west onto a smaller road that leads down. Down, down, from the cool, clear air of the mountains into the thick, hot, and humid air of the coast. You are running towards the sea. You are running towards the source of the rumors. You are running towards the heart of the great, nameless sickness, and you have no idea what you will find there. The journey down from the highlands is a descent into another world. You leave the cool, crisp, and familiar air of the mountains behind, and the road begins to snake its way down toward the great western sea. With every mile you run, the air grows thicker, warmer, and heavier, pressing in on you with a damp, humid embrace you are not used to. The landscape changes. The neat, terraced fields and the sparse, hardy vegetation of the mountains give way to a riot of green, a tangled, chaotic jungle of trees and vines that crowds the edges of the road. The sounds change. Too, the silence of the high peaks is replaced by a constant, buzzing, chattering chorus of insects and unseen birds. It is a world that feels wilder, older, and less tamed by the orderly hand of the empire. You are a creature of the highlands. Your lungs, your body, your very soul are attuned to the cold, thin air and the open, wind-swept spaces. Here, in the coastal lowlands, you feel sluggish, slow, your movements hampered by the thick, wet heat. Your mission, which felt like a great honor in the cool, clear-headed atmosphere of Quito, now feels ominous and threatening. You are a stranger in this part of your own empire, on your way to investigate a sickness that belongs to this strange, hot world after several days of running. You arrive in the Tumbes Valley. The road here is not the magnificent paved highway of the highlands. It is a wide, packed earth causeway, raised above the damp ground. You pass through several small, bustling villages, their inhabitants living in houses of cane and mud, their skin darker than the people of the mountains. They look at you, at your official runner's tunic and the quipu pouch at your side, with a mixture of respect and curiosity. You stop at a tambo to rest and eat, and you ask the local official about the villages further down the valley. The ones that have gone silent. The man's face darkens. He tells you that no one has come from the village of Mochica for more than a month. It was the first place, he says, where the sickness appeared after the bearded strangers passed through on a trading expedition. You continue your journey, your heart now pounding with a mixture of dread and a kind of grim. Professional focus. You are the Sapa Inca's eyes. You must see, and you must report. You smell the village of Mochica before you see it. It is a smell you have never encountered before, but your instincts recognize it immediately. It is the smell of decay, of rot, of death on a large scale, hanging heavy and sweet and foul in the humid air. It makes you gag, and you pull your tunic up over your nose. A useless gesture against a stench that seems to seep into your very skin as you round a bend in the road. The village comes into view, and it is silent. Utterly, profoundly silent. There are no children playing. There are no dogs barking. There is no smoke rising from the conical roofs of the huts. The only sound is the incessant, loud buzzing of immense clouds of black flies, which seem to cover every surface. You slow to a walk, your sandals making no sound on the dusty path leading into the village. You call out, "Hello." Your voice sounds thin and foolish in the oppressive silence. There is no answer. You cautiously enter the village square. The scene that greets you is a vision from a nightmare. The first body you see is that of a woman, lying on her back in the doorway of her hut as if she were trying to crawl out into the sunlight. Her skin is covered, from head to toe, in a horrifying carpet of raised, weeping sores, some of which have burst, leaving behind raw, puckered craters. Her face is swollen and distorted into an unrecognizable mask. The flies are a living, buzzing shroud upon her. You stumble back, your stomach heaving. This is the sickness. This is the pox that has no name. You have seen death before. You have seen the bodies of men who have fallen from the high mountain roads. And you have seen the still, peaceful faces of the old who have died in their sleep. But this is not death. This is a grotesque, obscene defilement. You force yourself to go on. You are a scout on a mission. You must see everything. You walk through the silent village. The horror is everywhere. You see bodies in their homes, lying on their sleeping mats, having died in their beds. You see them in the fields, slumped over their hoes, having been struck down in the middle of their work. You see an entire family, a father, a mother, and two small children lying together under a tree, as if they had simply laid down for a nap and never woken up. All of them are covered in the same hideous pustular rash. This is not a normal disease. A normal sickness, a fever, or a flux calls the population. It takes the very old and the very young, the weak and the infirm. But this has taken everyone. The strong young farmer, the mother in her prime, the child at her breast. You are witnessing firsthand the brutal, devastating mathematics of a virgin soil epidemic. This is what happens when a new and virulent pathogen is introduced into a population that has absolutely no immunity, no biological memory of the enemy. It is not a sickness that kills a percentage of the people. It is a fire that consumes the entire forest. You find a handful of survivors. They are huddled together in the largest hut, the one that belonged to the village headman. They are more like ghosts than the living people, their eyes wide and vacant with trauma, their bodies thin and weak. Some are still sick, their skin covered in the pox. Others are in the recovery stage, their faces and bodies covered in the deep. Pitted scars the disease leaves behind, a permanent mask of their ordeal. You speak to an old woman, one of the few who seems to have her wits about her. She tells you the story. It happened just as the trader said. The bearded men came. They did not stay long. They traded some of their strange metal knives for food. And then they left. A week later, the first person in the village fell sick. It was the headman, the man who had traded directly with the strangers, then his family, and then, like a fire leaping from roof to roof, it spread through the entire village. Our healer did what he could, the old woman whispers, her voice a dry rustle of leaves. He made offerings. He chanted the prayers. He tried all the sacred herbs. Nothing worked. The gods are deaf to us here. You see the proof of her words. In the center of the hut, there is a small, cleared space. On it is a collection of shamanic tools, dried herbs, colorful feathers, a small drum, and the body of a guinea pig. Its belly slit open, its entrails examined for some sign, some answer that never came. The entire spiritual and medical arsenal of your civilization has been deployed against this enemy, and it has proven to be as effective as trying to stop a flood with a handful of feathers. One of the survivors, a young man with the pitted scars already forming on his face, holds up a small object. It is a single green glass bead, identical to the one you saw in the Highlands. He has tied it to a string and wears it as a necklace. From the strangers, he says, "It has power. It is the only reason I am alive." You stare at the bead. This small, worthless piece of glass, a bauble from another world, has become a sacred amulet. The sickness came from the strangers, but the survivors are now clinging to the artifacts of those same strangers for protection. This is a new and terrifying kind of conquest. It is not a conquest of armies, but a conquest of the mind, a spiritual conquest. Historians will later debate the profound psychological impact this apparent immunity of the Europeans had on the indigenous peoples of the Americas. How could the strangers carry this death with them, yet not be affected by it? Did it mean their god was more powerful than the sun god? Inti. Did it mean they were gods themselves? This confusion, this shattering of cosmic certainty, was a sickness of the soul that was just as devastating as the pox on the skin. You spend a day in the village of Mochica. You do what you can. You help the survivors gather what little untainted food is left. You help them bring fresh water from the stream, but you know your mission is not to be a relief worker. Your mission is to report. You have seen enough. The rumors are true. The stories are not exaggerated. In fact, they did not do justice to the horror. You must return to Quito. You must tell the Sapa Inca what you have seen. You must warn the Empire as you prepare to leave. As you stand at the edge of the silent, stinking village and look back one last time, you feel a strange chill run through your body. A shiver that has nothing to do with fear. The oppressive, humid heat of the coast suddenly feels cold. A dull ache begins to throb behind your eyes. Your throat feels dry, scratchy. You tell yourself it is just the dust from the road, the fatigue from your journey. But you are a man who is now an expert in the early signs of sickness. You have spent a day surrounded by the dead and the dying, breathing the air of their last, agonized breaths. A wave of dizziness washes over you, and you lean against a tree for support. You look down at your own strong, runner's legs, the legs that are the instruments of your trade, the pistons that carry messages for an emperor, and a new. Cold and absolutely terrifying thought enters your mind. The message you were sent to retrieve is the horror you have just witnessed. But what if you are now carrying a different message back with you? A message encoded not in knotted string, but in your own blood. What if you, the Sapa Inca's trusted messenger, are now an unwitting agent of the pestilence? The realization hits you with the force of a physical blow. You are no longer just the bearer of news. You are the news itself, and you are about to carry it, with all the speed and efficiency of your office, up the great Inca road and into the unsuspecting, unprotected heart of your empire. The realization that you are sick, that you are carrying the very pestilence you were sent to investigate, is a spark of terror that ignites your remaining strength? Your mission is no longer just a duty. It is a desperate, frantic race against the multiplying enemy within your own blood. You must warn the Sapa Inca. You must tell him what you have seen before this sickness robs you of your strength, your senses, your very life. You turn away from the silent, death-stenched village of Mauchica, and you begin to run. But it is not the smooth, tireless, ground-eating lope of the Emperor's messenger. It is a clumsy, stumbling, pain-filled flight. Your journey down from the mountains was a descent into a physical hell. Your journey back up is a desperate scramble to escape it, the oppressive coastal heat, which had been a torment, is now dwarfed by the raging fire of your own fever. You are burning from the inside out. The world takes on a shimmering, unreal quality. The lush green jungle at the side of the road seems to pulse with a malevolent life. The sounds of the insects and birds are a deafening, maddening chorus. Your body, once a finely tuned instrument of endurance, has become your enemy. Your muscles ache with a deep, punishing soreness. Your joints feel as if they are filled with ground glass. The pouch of coca leaves you chew offers no relief. You force yourself onward, your mind fixed on a single goal, the next tambo, the next relay station. You stumble into the first one. Your body slick with sweat, your eyes wild. The chasqui on duty there looks at you with alarm. You gasp out a few words about the sickness on the coast, about the urgency of your message. You drink greedily from the water pot, and you know, with a sick certainty, that you are contaminating it. You rest for a few feverish hours on a sleeping mat, and you know you are leaving the seeds of the plague behind in the very fabric of the straw. When you leave, another runner takes your place for a short stretch, allowing you a brief respite, but you are the message. You must continue. You push on, up the winding road, back into the highlands. As you climb, the air grows cooler, thinner. The relief you expect does not come. The cool air feels like ice against your burning skin, and your laboring lungs struggle to draw enough of the thin air to fuel your failing body. You are a biological weapon, an unwitting agent of apocalypse. And the great Inca Road, the artery of the empire, is your delivery system at every station you stop. You interact with other runners, you share a cup of chicha, you exchange a few words, and with every interaction, you pass along your invisible, deadly cargo. You are a single stone, cast into the still pond of the empire, and the ripples of the sickness are spreading out from you with every step you take. After a journey that feels like a lifetime, a nightmare of pain and feverish determination, you finally stumble into the outskirts of Quito. You are a horrifying sight, a ghost covered in dust and sweat, your face gaunt, your eyes burning. You do not even remember the last few miles. Your legs have carried you here on memory alone. You collapse at the city gates, gasping out your purpose to the stunned guards. A message for the Sapa Inca from the coast. That is all you remember. You wake up in a dark room. You are lying on a soft alpaca wool blanket. A cool, wet cloth is on your forehead. An old woman, a healer, is chanting softly beside you, waving a bundle of smoking herbs over your body. Your fever is still raging, and as you drift back into the delirium, you see them, the first of the blisters, the heralds of the pox, beginning to bloom on your hands and arms. Your report has been delivered, and you have brought a live sample with you from your sickbed. You become a spectator to the unraveling of the world. The sickness you carried into the city on your own feverish back begins its silent, inexorable march through Quito. At first, it is just whispers. A guard at the palace has fallen ill. A nobleman's wife has a terrible fever, but soon, the whispers become a torrent. The disease, which found the tightly packed, unhygienic cities of Europe so welcoming finds the dense, orderly urban centers of your empire to be an equally fertile ground. The best healers from across the empire are summoned to the Sapa Inca's court. They perform the great rituals of divination. They sacrifice dozens of pure white llamas. Examining their entrails for a sign, for a clue from the gods, they make massive offerings of intricately woven textiles, of precious shells, of gold and silver, burning them in great fires to appease the heavens. But the gods remain silent. The healer's herbs have no effect. Their chants cannot turn back the fever. Their magic is useless against a microorganism they cannot see or comprehend. The court of Huayna Capac, the mighty Sapa Inca, son of the sun, ruler of the four quarters, is consumed by the pestilence. Generals, priests, nobles, servants. They all begin to fall ill. The orderly. Magnificent city of Quito becomes a place of fear and death, a mirror of the small coastal village you fled. And then the unthinkable happens. The news spreads through the terrified city in hushed, horrified whispers. The Sapa Inca himself has fallen ill. The son of the sun is burning with the nameless fever. This is not just a political crisis. It is a cosmic one. The Sapa Inca is not a mere mortal. He is a god on earth, the living embodiment of the sun, the central pillar that holds the entire universe in balance. His health is the health of the empire, if he can be struck down by this common, filthy sickness. What does that mean? It means the gods have abandoned them. It means the universe itself is coming undone. The emperor's chosen heir, his eldest son, Ninan Kuyochi, a young man who is being groomed to take his place, is also struck down by the disease. The line of succession, the very future of the empire, is now in jeopardy. The historical accounts of these events, pieced together years later by Spanish chroniclers from the testimony of Incan survivors, are brief and tragic. Huayna Capac, realizing he was dying, attempted one last act of divination to name a new successor from among his other sons. The omens for the first choice were bad. The omens for the second were worse. And then, before he could choose a third, the great Sapa Inca, the ruler of millions, the conqueror of vast territories, died. He died in his palace in Quito, not from a warrior's spear or a political assassin's knife, but from a virus, an invisible enemy that had traveled across a great ocean he never knew existed. His death is a cataclysm. The sun has fallen from the sky. The mourning is immediate and profound. The empire is plunged into a state of ritualized grief. But even as the professional mourners begin their wailing, the priests and attendants must begin the sacred, all-important process of transforming the dead emperor into an eternal ancestor. His body is carefully eviscerated and preserved using a secret combination of herbs and oils, a sophisticated process of mummification. His mummy, his malqui, is then dressed in the finest textiles, adorned with gold and feathers, and seated on a golden stool. This is a crucial, and for outsiders, a deeply strange detail of Incan life. The mummies of the dead emperors were not considered dead. They were treated as living entities, divine beings who continue to hold court, to own property, and to be consulted on matters of state. They were paraded through the streets on golden litters during great festivals. They had their own servants who fed them food and gave them drink by burning the offerings before them. The death of a Sapa Inca was not an end, but a transition to a different, more powerful state of being. But this time, the transition is interrupted, just as the rituals for Huayna Capac are beginning. The pestilence claims another victim. The heir, Ninan Kuyochi, also dies. The empire is now not just mourning, it is headless. The clear line of succession has been shattered. Two of Huayna Capac's other sons are now the clear contenders for the throne. In the southern, traditional capital of Cusco is Huáscar, a proud and perhaps arrogant man. And here in the northern capital of Quito, surrounded by his father's most loyal and battle-hardened armies, is Atahualpa, a brilliant, ambitious, and ruthless military commander. The empire now has two centers of power, two potential heirs, and a vast, plague-ravaged space between them. The stage is set for a conflict that will tear the empire apart. You, meanwhile, have survived. Your fever breaks. The pox on your skin begins to scab and heal, leaving behind a network of deep, pitted scars that will mark you for the rest of your life. You are one of the lucky few who have weathered the storm. But you wake to a world that is broken. You, the loyal messenger who nearly killed himself to bring a warning to his emperor, have woken to find the emperor dead, his heir dead, and the empire you served on the brink of self-destruction. Lying on your sickbed in Quito, you listen to the sounds of the city, the formal, ritualized wailing for the dead. Sapa Inca is beginning to be replaced by a new sound. It is the sound of soldiers shouting in the streets, the sound of weapons being sharpened, the sound of men declaring their allegiance. You hear two names being shouted over and over again, in anger and in loyalty. Huáscar, Atahualpa. The biological crisis has seamlessly and tragically transformed into a political one. The unseen enemy, the nameless pox, has done more than just kill millions of your people. It has created a power vacuum. It has ignited a civil war. The death of the sun god. You realize Kanda was not the end of the darkness. It was only the beginning. You survive. This is the first and most baffling miracle. While the plague continues to scour the city of Quito, your fever breaks. The weeping sores on your skin dry up, scab over, and fall away, leaving behind a permanent, disfiguring map of pitted scars. You are alive, but you are marked, a living testament to the nameless pox. Your body is a wreck. You have lost a great deal of weight, and a persistent weakness lingers in your left leg, a subtle reminder of the virus's journey through your nervous system. But you are immune. In a city where death is a daily, commonplace event, you now possess a strange and valuable superpower. You have already had the sickness, and it cannot touch you again. This makes you a useful commodity, as you slowly regain your strength. You are not sent home to your village. You are put back to work. You are still a chasqui, a messenger for the empire, but the empire you once served, the great, unified, and eternal Tawantinsuyu, no longer exists. In its place are two burgeoning empires, two factions coalescing around two rival brothers, each claiming to be the rightful heir of the fallen sun god. In the southern capital of Cusco, the sacred and ancient heart of your people, Huáscar has been crowned Sapa Inca. He is the son of the emperor's principal wife, and by many traditions, his claim is the strongest. He controls the religious heartland, the great temples, the established bureaucracy, but here in the north, in the military stronghold of Quito, the great generals, the most powerful and respected men in the empire, have thrown their support behind Atahualpa. He is also a son of Huayna Capac, though by a lesser wife, he is a brilliant, charismatic, and ruthless commander who fought alongside his father for years in the northern campaigns. He has the loyalty of the empire's best and most battle-hardened legions. The two brothers are now engaged in a long distance, high-stakes war of words and legitimacy. Huáscar, in Cusco, demands that Atahualpa come to the capital and pay him homage. Atahualpa, in Quito, refuses, fearing, probably correctly, that he would be executed as a rival. The standoff festers. The great road that once united the empire now becomes a line of division, a conduit for threats and ultimatums, and you are the one who runs them. Your job is fundamentally the same, but the messages you carry have changed. The quipus you are given are no longer filled with census data or harvest reports. The knots and colored strings now represent troop numbers, strategic positions, and reports on the loyalty of provincial governors. You are no longer a mailman. You are a military courier, a vital part of a vast intelligence network in a burgeoning civil war. The two brothers are fighting over who gets to be the divine emperor of a plague-ridden, half-empty graveyard, and their ambition is breathtaking. You run the roads, and you see the empire tearing itself apart. You see armies on the move, long columns of disciplined soldiers, their bronze-tipped spears glinting in the sun, marching not against a foreign tribe, but against their own countrymen. You see the great stone storehouses, the kulkos, being emptied not to feed the starving, but to supply the warring armies. The perfectly organized system that was designed to preserve the empire is now being used to fuel its self-destruction. The war begins in earnest. At first, Huascar's forces, marching north from Cusco, have the upper hand. They win a major battle and even manage to capture Atahualpa himself, though he quickly and daringly escapes. The news in Quito is grim. The mood is tense. Then, Atahualpa puts his faith in his two brilliant and utterly ruthless generals, Quisquiz and Chalcuchamac. They are veterans of the Northern Wars, and they command a fanatical loyalty from their troops. They begin to push back, and the tide of the war turns. You are now running messages to and from these great commanders. Your scarred face and proven immunity giving you access to the inner workings of the war machine. You arrive at a military camp and witness a scene of surreal and terrible grandeur. Atahualpa's army is preparing for a major battle, and at the head of the army, carried on a magnificent golden litter by a host of attendants, is the mummy of his father, Huayna Capac. This is a strange and obscure detail of your people's warfare. The mummified emperors, the Malqui, were not just revered ancestors, they were active participants in the life of the empire. Their mummies were paraded into battle to inspire the troops. Their divine presence a guarantee of victory. Atahualpa, the son whose claim to the throne is weaker by blood, is using the corpse of his father as the ultimate symbol of legitimacy. A divine mascot for his military campaign. It is a brilliant political move, and a deeply macabre spectacle, as you travel back and forth between the two warring halves of your world. You hear the arguments and justifications from both sides. In the southern territories loyal to Huascar, you hear Atahualpa derided as a usurper, a bastard son from the provinces, a traitor to the sacred capital of Cusco. In the north, you hear Huascar dismissed as a weak, decadent, and untested courtier, a man who has none of his father's strength or his brother's military genius. This is the great debate that has plunged the empire into chaos, a debate that has no clear answer. The Incan system of succession was not always a simple matter of the eldest son inheriting. The Sapa Inca often chose the most competent of his sons, regardless of the status of their mother. The plague, by killing both the emperor and his clearly designated heir, had thrown the entire system into confusion, creating a crisis that was now being resolved with spears and clubs. And all the while, the nameless pox continues its own quieter war. The movement of these great armies is the perfect vector for spreading the disease into the more remote highland valleys that had so far been spared. You run through villages where the people are suffering from a dual apocalypse, the sickness that takes their children, and the armies that take their food. The fabric of the empire is not just tearing, it is rotting from within. The war rages for several years, a bloody back and forth along the spine of the Andes. But the military genius of Atahualpa's generals proves to be the decisive factor. They crush Huascar's armies in a series of brutal battles. They march south, all the way to the gates of Cusco itself. They capture Huascar, taking the crowned Sapa Inca as their prisoner. The civil war is over. Atahualpa is victorious. You are with Atahualpa's court when the news of the final victory arrives. He is not in Quito, nor has he yet gone to Cusco. He is resting with a large contingent of his troops in the pleasant valley town of Cajamarca. There is a great celebration. Massive quantities of chicha are consumed. The soldiers sing and dance. The empire, though bleeding, scarred, and decimated by plague, has a single, undisputed leader once more. Atahualpa is now the Sapa Inca. There's a sense of exhausted, triumphant relief. The chaos is over. Order can now be restored. It is in the midst of this celebration that a new message arrives. It is brought not by a Chasqui, but by a local official from the coast. He is breathless, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. He says that a small group of the bearded men, the strange beings from the sea, have returned. There are less than 200 of them, but they have strange animals that they ride like giant llamas' horses. And their thundersticks are real. They are making their way up from the coast, into the mountains. They are heading this way. Atahualpa, in the flush of his absolute victory, is not afraid. He is curious. What threat could a mere 200 strangers pose to him? The victorious commander of an army of 80,000 veteran soldiers. He has just conquered an empire. He is the son of the sun. His power is absolute. He sees these strange visitors not as a threat, but as a novelty, perhaps even as a good omen, a strange tribute from a foreign world to mark the beginning of his reign. He agrees to meet them. He sends a message inviting them to the city of Cajamarca. You, the messenger who has seen the devastation these strangers leave in their wake. Feel a cold knot of dread in your stomach. You have seen the pox. You know that the power of these men is not just in their strange weapons, but in the invisible death they carry with them. But you are a servant. You say nothing. You watch as the great Sapa Inca, the most powerful man in your world, makes a decision based on arrogance and a fatal underestimation of the newcomers. He has won the war against his brother. He is about to face an enemy of a completely different kind. You stand on a hill overlooking the road to Cajamarca, and you see them in the distance. A small, strange procession, glinting in the sun. The bearded men are coming. The end of the Civil War. You realize with a sudden, chilling clarity, it is not the end of the story. It is merely the end of a chapter, and the next one is about to begin. The victory celebration in Cajamarca is a strange, feverish affair. The city is filled with Atahualpa's triumphant, battle-hardened soldiers. But it is a victory held in a land of ghosts, for every soldier celebrating in the plaza. You know there are a dozen empty homes in the valleys beyond. The chicha flows freely, and the songs of victory are loud, but they cannot quite drown out the profound, echoing silence that has settled over the empire, your immunity, the scarred testament of your own brush with death, makes you a valuable asset, while many of the other Chasquis are dead or weakened. You are now a trusted veteran, a man who has seen the new enemy and survived. Your duties resume, but the empire you run through is a changed and broken world. You are given a new quipu, a message of victory and consolidation from the new Sapa Inca, Atahualpa, to be delivered to a provincial governor to the south. The mission is simple: run the Great Road. Deliver the message. Bring back a report on the state of the province. As you leave the relative security and strange energy of Cajamarca, the true state of the empire reveals itself. The Capac Ñan, the Great Road, was once a symbol of order and connection. It was meticulously maintained. The stone paving was always swept clean. The drainage channels were clear. The suspension bridges were inspected and rewoven. Now, it is beginning to decay. You see stretches where rockfalls have not been cleared, where the grass is beginning to grow between the paving stones. The road is still functional, but it is neglected. The army of laborers who once maintained it is gone. The tambos, the relay stations that were once your clean, well-stocked homes away from home, are in an even worse state. You arrive at one after a long day's run, expecting a fire and a pot of stew, only to find it empty. Its roof partially collapsed, its food stores long since looted or rotted away. You have to sleep on the cold stone floor and eat the last of your own supply of dried maize. The great system of state-sponsored support, the network that made your job possible, is fraying at the edges, but the most devastating sight is the land itself. You run through valleys that you know were once the most fertile and productive in the empire. The great terraced Andes still climb the mountainsides, magnificent testaments to your people's engineering genius. But they are empty. It is planting season, but no one is planting. The rich soil lies fallow, already sprouting with weeds. The plague did not just kill the people, it killed the knowledge. The intricate understanding of planting cycles, of irrigation, of which variety of potato to grow at which specific altitude, was a collective wisdom held by the farming communities. With those communities gone, the knowledge is gone with them. The Civil War completed the destruction. The young men who should be in the fields, working the soil, were conscripted into the armies of Huascar or Atahualpa. They died fighting each other, hundreds of miles from the land that should have sustained them. The feast in Cajamarca, you realize with a cold certainty, was a feast on borrowed time. Winter is coming, and a famine, more terrible than any you have ever known, will surely follow. You reflect on the ingenious complexity of the world you have lost. Your empire mastered the challenges of the Andes through a system that future scholars would call a vertical archipelago, since the mountains made it impossible to grow everything in one place. You established colonies at different altitudes. One village, high in the mountains, would specialize in potatoes and llamas. They would send their goods down to a colony in a temperate valley that grew maize, which in turn would trade with a colony in the hot, humid jungle lowlands that produced fruit, coca, and colorful feathers. The Great Road connected them all, a vertical conveyor belt of goods that ensured a varied and stable food supply. It was a brilliant, complex solution to a unique environmental problem. But a complex system is also a fragile one, with the roads breaking down and the people who work the colonies dead. The archipelago has been shattered. The islands are now isolated, cut off from each other. The Great Exchange has ceased. One day, you arrive at a major administrative center, a place that was once a hub of power for an entire province. Here, the scale of the logistical collapse becomes starkly clear. You see the great royal storehouses, the Kulkas, dozens of circular stone buildings arranged in neat rows on a dry hillside. They are a symbol of the Sapa Inca's divine providence, his ability to provide for his people in times of need, driven by a grim curiosity. You enter one of them. The air inside is cool and dry, and it is full, from floor to ceiling. It is packed with a vast, almost unbelievable quantity of food. There are immense baskets of freeze-dried potatoes, the chuño that can last for years. There are clay pots filled with maize and quinoa. There are bales of fine alpaca wool and stacks of woven textiles. There is enough food here to feed an army, to sustain a province through the worst famine. And it is all just sitting there, rotting. The system is broken. The Quipucamayaks, the men who kept the inventory of these storehouses on their knotted strings, are dead. The provincial officials who would organize the distribution of this food to the people are dead. The laborers who would haul the grain from the storehouse to the villages are dead. The empire is starving in the midst of a staggering abundance. Because the bureaucracy, the human software that ran the imperial machine, has been erased by the plague. It is the world's most tragic and catastrophic administrative failure. As you stand in that silent, dusty storehouse, surrounded by mountains of useless food, you grapple with the sheer scale of the loss of life. How many people used to live in this province? How many lived in the whole empire? 10 million? 12, 14. The numbers are impossible to comprehend. Future historians would argue endlessly about the true population of Tawantinsuyu before the fall, their estimates varying by millions. The Quipas that held the census data are gone, or their keepers are... The only thing that is certain is that a catastrophic percentage of your people, perhaps 50%, perhaps as high as 90%, vanished in a single nightmarish generation. You are living in the ruins of one of the greatest demographic disasters in human history. You continue your journey south, and the landscape is a continuous portrait of this collapse. You are no longer a messenger in a functioning empire. You are a lonely traveler in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Your prestigious, state-sponsored athletic career has been downgraded significantly. One evening, you are forced to take shelter in a deserted village. As you explore the empty huts, looking for any sign of life or any scrap of food, you find a small, personal quipu hanging on a wall. It is not the complex, official record-keeping device you are used to carrying. It is a simpler one, the kind a local headman might use to keep track of his village's affairs. You take it down. The strings are dry and brittle. You run your fingers over the knots. You do not know the code, but you can feel the information locked inside. This string, perhaps, represents the number of llamas in the village herd. This other one, the number of children born last year. It is a ghost of a community, a silent, tactile record of a lost world. You leave it where it is. It belongs with the ghosts. You finally arrive at your destination, the provincial capital. You find the governor, a worried, haunted-looking man, and deliver your kwaipu from Atahualpa. The governor provides you with a new message to carry back, a report on the state of his province. The report is grim. The plague is still active here. The tribute to the capital cannot be paid. There are not enough men to work the mines or the fields. As you prepare for your return journey, you witness a small but profoundly significant scene. In a small fallow field at the edge of the town, you see a single family, a man, a woman, and 2 children. They are not working on the communal terraces. They are digging up a private plot of land, a small square that they have cleared themselves. They are using digging sticks to plant their own maize. This is a quiet, radical act of rebellion. In the Incan world, all land belonged to the Sapa Inca. It was loaned out to communities to be worked collectively. The concept of private property, of a family owning and farming their own personal patch of earth, was alien. But the old system has failed them. The state-sponsored storehouses are full, but the people are starving. The communal terraces are empty. Because the community is gone, this family has made a choice. They have abandoned the ancient, collective system and have fallen back on the most basic human instinct: they will feed themselves. You watch them work, their movements determined and focused, and you realize you are witnessing the true death of the empire. It did not die when Huayna Capic died. It did not die in the great battles of the Civil War. It is dying now in these small, quiet acts of individual survival, as the survivors abandon the old ways, the old certainties, simply to stay alive. The great centralized, communal empire is dissolving from the bottom up, and into this vacuum of power, into this land of silent villages, empty storehouses, and newly dug private gardens. The bearded men are coming. They will not be invading a strong and unified empire. They will be stepping into its ruins. Your journey back to Cajamarca is a journey through a graveyard. You run the decaying roads, not with the fire of fever in your blood, but with the cold ash of what you have seen in your heart. You are the bearer of a terrible report, a first-hand account of the empire's silent, rotting collapse. The sight of the family tilling their own small, private plot of land is the image that haunts you most. It is a sign that the great, collective idea of your empire, the world of the Sapa Inca, is already dead. The survivors are simply learning to live without it. You arrive in Cajamarca, the temporary capital of the victorious Sapa Inca, Atahualpa, and you deliver your report to his court. You speak of the empty villages, the fallow fields, the full storehouses with no one to distribute the food. The nobles and generals listen, their faces grim. They have been celebrating their victory over Huascar. But your report is a stark reminder that they have inherited a corpse. Atahualpa himself is concerned, but his attention, and the attention of his entire court, is now fixed on a new and more immediate curiosity. The bearded men have returned. The rumors you heard on the coast, the stories that seemed like fantastical tales a year ago, are now a physical reality. A small group of them, less than 200 in total, have made their way up from the coast, following the Inca road system into the mountains. They are led by a man named Francisco Pizarro, and they are coming here, Atahualpa, flush with the absolute victory of his civil war, is a man of supreme and unshakable confidence. He is the Sapa Inca, the victorious warrior king, the commander of 80,000 veteran soldiers who are camped with him in this very valley. The idea that this small band of oddly dressed strangers could pose any threat is laughable. He sees them not as a danger, but as a curiosity. A strange delegation from a lesser world, perhaps coming to pay him tribute. He has sent messengers to them, and he has agreed to meet them in the main plaza of Cajamarca, from your vantage point on the hillside surrounding the city, where the vast Incan army is camped. You watch them arrive. The city of Cajamarca itself has been strategically emptied at Atahualpa's command. He wants to meet them in the open square, to display his own magnificence without the clutter of the city's populace. You see the strangers enter the deserted city below, and the sight is one of profound, alien strangeness. There are so few of them, but it's their appearance that is so shocking. They are pale-skinned, and many of them have thick, dark hair covering the lower halves of their faces. A sight that is unnatural and unsettling to your people. They are encased in shining metal shells that glint and flash in the Andean sun. But most terrifying of all are the beasts they ride. You have never seen an animal like this. It is a horse, a creature of immense size and power, far larger than any llama, with a flowing mane and a loud, intimidating snort. And a man sits upon its back as if they were one creature. You watch them ride into the empty plaza, and you cannot be sure if the man and the beast are two separate beings, or some new kind of monstrous. Man, beast, god. This is a potent and obscure psychological weapon. Your people have no context for a cavalry charge, no understanding of the power and terror that a man on horseback can unleash. You hear the debate that rages among the nobles and priests in Atahualpa's camp. Who are these strangers? Are they mortals, or are they Viracochas? The return of the creator god. Viracocha, who was said to have white skin and a beard, and who had promised to one day return from the sea? Some of the priests, looking for a supernatural explanation for the plague that has ravaged the land, argue that these must be the gods. Others, remembering the sickness that follows them, argue they are demons, or at best, ill-mannered mortals with dangerous toys. This debate, whether the Inca and other Mesoamerican peoples truly believed the Europeans were gods, will occupy historians for centuries. Was it a genuine, paralyzing belief rooted in prophecy? Or was it a convenient narrative created after the fact by the Spanish to legitimize their conquest? To make it seem like a divine inevitability, watching the confused and fearful faces around you. You suspect the truth is a messy combination of both. Atahualpa, however, is a pragmatist. He dismisses the idea that they are gods. He has received reports from his own scouts. He knows they are mortals, they sicken, they sleep, they eat. He believes they are simply the arrogant captains of a band of thieves. His plan is simple. He will meet them in the plaza. He will awe them with the sheer scale of his power and the splendor of his court. And then, his 80,000 soldiers will easily surround and capture this pathetic little group. He is not walking into a negotiation. He is walking into a display of his own absolute power. The next day, the great procession begins. It is a spectacle designed to intimidate, a stunning display of imperial wealth and might. Thousands of attendants march first, sweeping the road clean before the Sapa Inca. Then come squads of warriors, singing songs of victory. Then come hundreds of nobles, dressed in their finest ceremonial tunics of brightly colored feathers and checkerboard patterns. their ears heavy with massive gold ornaments. And then comes Atahualpa. He is not walking. He is carried on a massive, magnificent litter, a portable throne plated with more than 150 pounds of gold and silver, and decorated with brilliant parrot feathers. He sits on a golden stool, a collar of huge emeralds around his neck. Looking serene, powerful, and utterly divine, utterly, you are part of this great, slow-moving river of humanity, one of the thousands of attendants and soldiers accompanying your emperor into the city. You look at the sea of your own people, at the thousands of warriors lining the hillsides, and you think of the handful of strangers waiting in the plaza below. The odds are so absurd it is almost comical. 168 of them against tens of thousands of you. This is not a meeting. It is a foregone conclusion. The bearded men's fashion sense, with their heavy metal clothes in the hot sun, is as terrible as their judgment. The procession enters the city of Cajamarca. The streets are empty, silent. The only sound is the rhythmic chanting of the attendants and the soft footsteps of thousands of sandals on the stone. You emerge from the narrow streets into the great central plaza. It is a vast open square, surrounded on three sides by long stone buildings with many doorways. And it is empty, eerily empty. The procession flows into the square, filling the space with color and people. Atahualpa, high on his litter, surveys the scene. He sees no one. "Where are they?" he asks, his voice sharp with annoyance. At that moment, a single figure emerges from one of the buildings. He is not a soldier. He is a man in a dark robe, holding a wooden cross in one hand and a book in the other. He is a priest of the strangers, a man named Valverde. He is accompanied by a native interpreter. The priest approaches Atahualpa's litter. He begins to speak, his voice loud and strident. The interpreter translates. He speaks of his own God, a single, powerful God who created all things. He speaks of his king, a great king across the sea. He tells Atahualpa that he must accept this new God as his own, and this new king as his lord. He holds up the book, which he calls the word of his God. Atahualpa is confused, and then amused, and then enraged. Who is this insignificant man to demand that he, the son of the sun, the ruler of the world, should bow to some other god, some other king? He asks to see the book. It is handed up to him. He examines the strange object. It does not speak. It does not contain any power he can feel. With a gesture of imperial disdain, he throws the book to the ground. The Spanish priest is horrified. He turns, runs back towards the building he came from, and he begins to shout. You cannot understand his words, but his tone is clear. It is a cry of outrage, a call to arms. And then, all at once, hell erupts from the doorways of the buildings surrounding the plaza. The strangers appear. The ones on foot carry their thunder sticks. The harquebuses, the ones on the monstrous beasts, the cavalry, are holding long steel swords. A cannon, hidden in one of the buildings, fires with a deafening roar that shakes the very ground. Pizarro has sprung his trap. The harquebuses fire, spitting smoke and lead into the dents. Unprepared crowd of your nobles and attendants. The cavalry charges. The great beasts thundering across the plaza, their steel-shod hooves striking sparks on the stone. The men on their backs swing their long, sharp swords, cutting a bloody swath through the terrified, unarmed crowd. The scene dissolves into pure, absolute chaos. Your people have never seen anything like this. They have never heard the sound of gunfire. They have never faced a cavalry charge. The psychological shock is as devastating as the weapons themselves. The Incan warriors, who are largely unarmed, carrying only ceremonial small axes, are trampled and cut down. They panic. They try to flee, but they are trapped in the plaza. They surge against one of the great stone walls, and such is the force of their terror that they break it down, creating an escape route. But the Spaniards are not interested in the attendants. Their target is the Sapa Inca. They cut their way through the sea of panicked bodies towards the golden litter. Atahualpa's litter bearers, his most loyal nobles, are incredibly brave. As one is cut down, another immediately takes his place, holding the litter steady, trying to protect their divine lord. They will not let him fall. You are caught in the stampede, swept along by the tide of terrified bodies. You see it all in snapshots of horror. The flashing swords, the smoke from the guns, the terrified, screaming horses, and the golden litter of your emperor, tossing in the center of it all like a small boat in a hurricane. The chapter that began with the victory celebration of a civil war is ending in a one-sided massacre. You have walked from a dying empire directly into an ambush, and the man you thought was a god is about to become a prisoner. The roar of the cannon fades, replaced by the screams of the dying. The chaos in the great plaza of Cajamarca is absolute. You are swept up in the tide of panic, a human wave of terror breaking against the stone walls of the square. The surprise is so complete, so utterly alien, that your people, the disciplined soldiers of a victorious army, are transformed into a terrified, fleeing mob. The attack is not a battle, it is a slaughter. You manage to escape with a handful of others through the gap in the wall that the sheer force of the crowd has broken open. You scramble up the hillside, back toward the safety of the main Incan army, your heart hammering, your mind a blank slate of shock and disbelief. From the hillside, you look back down into the plaza. The screaming subsides, replaced by a stunned, horrifying silence. The square is a carpet of crumpled, colorful textiles, the bodies of the thousands of nobles, attendants, and ceremonial warriors who had accompanied Atahualpa into his own trap. And in the center of it all, you see it, the golden litter is overturned. And Atahualpa, the Sapa Inca, the son of the sun, the divine ruler of the world, is being dragged from the wreckage by the bearded men. Pizarro himself, the leader of the strangers, puts a hand on your emperor, not in reverence but in possession. A god has been taken prisoner. A wave of confusion and paralysis ripples through the 80,000 Incan warriors camped on the hillsides. You look at them, this immense, powerful, undefeated army. You see the great generals, Quizquiz and Chalcochimag. Their faces masks of rage and disbelief. And yet, they do nothing. The army does not move. They do not sweep down into the city and annihilate the handful of strangers who have just committed this unthinkable act of sacrilege. Why, the question hangs in the air, as thick as the smoke from the harquebuses. Historians will debate it for centuries. What was it? The psychological shock of the Spanish weaponry? The terrifying power of their cannons and cavalry? Was it a lingering religious awe? A fear that these creatures, who could capture a god, must be gods themselves? Or was it the very nature of your top-down command structure? Was the Incan army so centralized, so dependent on a direct order from the Sapa Inca, that, without his command, the entire war machine simply froze? Unable to act standing on that hill, you do not know the reason. You only know the result, a terrifying, collective paralysis. The body of the empire is still strong, but its head has been severed, and the body lies twitching, unable to move. In the days that follow, a new and surreal reality takes hold. Atahualpa is not killed. He is kept a prisoner in one of the main buildings overlooking the plaza. He is a god in a golden cage. And you, as a trusted messenger who is now known to the court, become a part of this strange new world. A go-between carrying messages from the captive emperor to his generals outside the city. You get to see him, the Spaniards, in a strange gesture of respect for his rank. Allow him to maintain some of the trappings of his office. He is dressed in his fine vicuña wool tunics. He is attended by his wives, who serve him his meals from his golden plates. But he is a prisoner. Spanish soldiers stand guard at his door day and night. He is, You realize a man of incredible intelligence and composure. He shows no fear. He carries himself with a regal, almost bored, arrogance, as if his captors are merely a temporary and irritating inconvenience. You witness him watching the Spanish soldiers play a strange game with carved wooden pieces on a checkered board. It is a game called chess. After observing them for a few days, he points out a move that one of the Spaniards should have made. The soldiers are astonished. He has learned the complex rules of their war game simply by watching. This is the mind of your Emperor Sharp, strategic and constantly calculating, even in captivity, from his prison. Atahualpa continues to run his empire. It is a stunning display of remote work. He sends out orders on Quipus, delivered by you and other messengers. He manages his armies. He receives reports from his governors. And he makes one final, ruthless move to consolidate his power, fearing that the Spaniards might find his captive brother, Huáscar, and try to use him as a puppet emperor. Atahualpa sends a secret message to his generals in the south. The order is simple and brutal: execute Huáscar. The order is carried out. The civil war that started with the plague ends with a murder ordered from a Spanish prison cell. But Atahualpa's primary focus is on his captors. He studies them, and he quickly understands their weakness, their obsession, their one true god. It is not the man on the cross that their priest speaks of. It is the yellow, shining metal, gold. They have a lust for it that is primal, religious. They handle it, they weigh it. They speak of it with a feverish reverence. And so, Atahualpa makes his legendary gamble. He summons Pizarro. He stands in the middle of a large room in his prison, a room about 22 feet long and 17 feet wide. He reaches up and makes a mark on the wall. As high as he can reach, he makes his offer in exchange for his freedom. He will fill this room with gold, up to the level of the mark he has made, and he will fill 2 smaller, adjacent rooms twice over with silver. The Spaniards are dumbfounded. They look at the size of the room, at the mark on the wall. The idea is preposterous. The amount of gold required would be more than all the treasure in Europe. They think he is mad, but they see the look in his eye, and their own greed is so immense that they agree. They draw up a formal contract, a document that is as surreal as it is historic. The ransom of the Inca has been agreed upon. It will be the largest ransom ever paid in the history of the world. The order goes out across the empire. A great, final stripping of the wealth of a nation begins. You are once again on the road. But your mission is no longer to carry military intelligence. It is to carry the order for the ransom. You run to the great temples, to the sacred places, to the palaces of the nobles. You deliver the quaipu that commands them to strip their holy places of their treasures, and you watch as it happens. You see priests weeping as they carefully remove the heavy golden plates that cover the walls of the Coricancha, the great temple of the sun in Cusco. You see artisans watching in horror as their masterpieces are taken down, life-sized golden statues of llamas, delicate fountains that gurgle with silver water, entire garden scenes with cornstalks made of silver and their tassels made of golden thread, centuries of sacred art, of religious devotion, of priceless craftsmanship, is all being gathered up to be melted down into a crude pile of metal to satisfy the appetites of a few hundred greedy men. It is the world's most depressing telethon. Slowly, incredibly. The ransom begins to arrive in Cajamarca. Long lines of llamas, their backs laden with gold and silver, stream into the city. The ransom room begins to fill. The Spaniards watch, their eyes wide with a disbelieving, almost manic glee. They are like children on Christmas morning. If Christmas involved the systematic looting of an entire civilization for 2 months, the treasure pours in. The room is filled with golden goblets, with silver platters, with intricate jewelry, with statues of the gods. It is a collection of art so beautiful and so sacred that its value is incalculable. And then the Spanish goldsmiths set up their forges and begin to melt it all down. You watch as a life-size statue of a golden jaguar, an object of sublime and terrifying beauty, is tossed into a furnace. You watch it lose its shape, slump, and dissolve into a pool of shimmering, molten liquid. It is then poured into a crude mold to make a simple, heavy ingot of gold. The artistry, the history, the spirit of the object, it is all burned away, leaving only its raw monetary value. The act is a perfect metaphor for the conquest itself. Finally, the day comes when the ransom is complete. The great room is filled to the mark with a mountain of gold. The two smaller rooms are overflowing with silver. Atahualpa has fulfilled his part of the bargain. He has given them a treasure beyond their wildest dreams, and he expects to be set free. You stand in the plaza of Cajamarca. The ransom has been paid. The civil war is over. Your emperor has proven his power and his wealth. You look at the faces of Pizarro and his captains. You see their eyes, still glittering with a feverish greed. And you see the cold, hard calculation behind that greed. They have the treasure, and they still have the king. And it occurs to you, with a sudden, chilling certainty, that they have absolutely no intention of letting him go. The ransom was never about freedom. It was just an efficient way to organize the looting of an empire. The cage holding your god was never meant to be opened. And the final act of this tragedy is about to begin. The great ransom room in Cajamarca, now empty of its treasure, becomes a hollow monument to a broken promise. The mountain of gold and silver has been melted down, stamped into crude bars, and divided among Pizarro and his men. Atahualpa, the Sapa Inca, has fulfilled his part of the bargain, and now he waits for his freedom. He is a fool to have trusted them. You see it in the Spaniards' eyes. They are like wolves who have tasted blood. They have the treasure, but now they are faced with the inconvenient problem of the king who gave it to them. To release him would be madness. He is too powerful, too charismatic. He would immediately rally his vast armies and annihilate their small, isolated force. To keep him a prisoner indefinitely is a dangerous liability. And so, the bearded men decide to do what conquerors have always done. They decide to legitimize murder with the theater of law. They stage a trial. You witness this surreal spectacle from the edges of the plaza. A silent, powerless observer. It is a kangaroo court of the highest, most absurd order. Atahualpa, the divine ruler of a quarter of the known world, is put on trial by a handful of illiterate soldiers and a fanatical priest, in a language he does not understand, for crimes against a king he has never met and a god he does not believe in. The charges are read out, a list of stunning, hypocritical absurdities. He is charged with idolatry, for worshipping his own gods. He is charged with having too many wives. He is charged with incest, for marrying his own sister, a sacred and necessary custom for the Sapa Inca to maintain the purity of the royal bloodline. He is charged with usurping the throne, a charge made all the more ironic given that they are about to do the same. And, most outrageously, he is charged with treason against the crown of Spain. It is a bold legal accusation to level against a man who had never heard of Spain until a few months ago. The trial is a farce. The verdict is a foregone conclusion. Atahualpa is found guilty on all counts. The sentence is death. He is to be burned at the stake, the traditional punishment for a heretic, for Atahualpa. This sentence is a fate worse than death itself. In your people's cosmology, the preservation of the body after death is essential. A person's spirit can only journey into the afterlife and enjoy its pleasures if the body remains intact. To be mummified and venerated, to be burned is to be annihilated, to have your soul extinguished from the cosmos for all eternity. It is the ultimate terror. In his final moments, the captive god makes one last, desperate bargain. He sees the Spanish priest, Valverde, holding his cross. He knows how obsessed these men are with their own strange faith, with the ritual of baptism, and so he offers a deal. If they will spare him from the flames and grant him a death that preserves his body, he will agree to be baptized. He will die as a Christian. The Spaniards, eager to claim the soul of this great pagan king for their own god, agree. The sentence is commuted. He will not be burned. He will be executed by the garrote. And so, in the great plaza of Cajamarca, the same square where he was captured in all his glory, the final act of the tragedy is performed. Atahualpa is led to a stake in the center of the square. The priest, Valverde, performs a hasty baptism, giving the Sapa Inca the Christian name of his own conqueror, Francisco. Then the executioner steps forward. He places a rope, twisted around a stick, around Atahualpa's neck. He begins to turn the stick, twisting the rope tighter and tighter. The son of the sun, the ruler of the world, the victor of a great civil war, is quietly, efficiently, and pathetically strangled to death in the middle of his own city. The silence in the plaza is absolute. A god has been murdered. The conquest of the Incan Empire is now inevitable. The Spanish, however, are clever. They know they cannot rule this vast, complex empire on their own. They need a puppet. They find one of Atahualpa's younger brothers, a teenager named Tupac Hualpa, and they crown him as the new Sapa Inca. He is given the imperial fringe, the mascapaicha, and is treated with all the outward ceremony of a king. His main job, you quickly realize, is to look imperial and not get in the way. He is a ghost, given a throne to haunt, with their puppet in place, and their treasure chests full. Pizarro and his army, now reinforced by new arrivals from the coast, begin the long march south, towards the imperial capital, the sacred city of Cusco. You follow in their wake. You have no other purpose. Your role as a Chasqui is meaningless in this new, broken world. You are simply a witness now, a ghost haunting the footsteps of your new masters. The journey south is a revelation. It confirms the truth of what you saw on your own journey to Cajamarca. The Spanish are not marching through a hostile, defiant empire, ready to rise up and avenge their murdered king. They are marching through a graveyard. You pass through towns and villages that are half empty, their populations decimated by the smallpox you unwittingly carried with you. You see the terraced fields lying fallow, the great storehouses still full of rotting food. The infrastructure of the empire is still there. The roads, the bridges, the buildings, but the people who made it run are gone. Historians of the future will endlessly debate why the mighty Incan Empire, with its millions of people and its vast, disciplined armies, fell so quickly to a few hundred Spaniards. They will speak of Spanish military technology, of their steel swords and armor, of their horses and guns. But you are seeing the real reason. The Spanish did not conquer a healthy empire at the peak of its power. They were simply the final, opportunistic blow to a civilization that had already been brought to its knees. The true conqueror was the invisible one, the one that arrived a few years before them. The pox that had no name. The Spanish are not conquerors, they are scavengers, picking over a corpse on the march. You witness one of the most bizarre and revealing rituals of the newcomers. Before entering a new valley or approaching a village that has not yet submitted, a Spanish priest will ride ahead with a few soldiers. He will unroll a long scroll of parchment, and in a loud, declamatory voice, he will read from it, in Spanish or sometimes Latin, to the empty air or to a few terrified villagers who are hiding in the hills. This, you learn, is the requerimiento. It is a legal document, a demand, which states that the Pope in a faraway land has given these lands to the King of Spain. It demands that the listeners immediately accept the authority of this distant king and convert to the Christian faith. If they do not immediately comply, which, of course, is impossible, since they cannot understand a word of it, then the document declares that the Spanish are legally and morally justified in waging a just war against them, to conquer their lands, to take their property, and to enslave their people. It is the most absurd and cynical piece of bureaucratic theater you have ever witnessed. It is like reading the terms and conditions of a software update to a flock of sheep before shearing them. The Spanish force, with their puppet Inca in tow, finally reaches the outskirts of Cusco, the sacred capital, the navel of the world. The city has already been ravaged by the Civil War, its nobles divided in their loyalties. A brief token resistance is offered by the remnants of Atahualpa's northern army, but it is quickly crushed. You stand on a hill overlooking the city, the same way you once stood overlooking Cajamarca. You watch as the Spanish army, this small, ragged, and unbelievably lucky band of adventurers, marches into the sacred city. You see they're strange. Foreign flag, a banner of red and gold, being raised over the Coricancha, the great temple of the sun, the holiest place in your entire universe. The conquest is complete. But you know the truth. The conquest did not happen today. With the raising of a flag, it happened years ago, when the first sick sailor on a Spanish ship passed his germs to a coastal trader. It happened when you yourself, burning with fever, stumbled up the Inca road, a messenger carrying a plague. It happened when Huayna Capac and his heir died, shattering the line of succession. It happened when brother turned against brother, tearing the empire apart. The bearded men in their metal shells did not conquer your empire. They simply arrived to claim the inheritance of a ghost. The years that follow are a long, slow, and confusing dream. The Spanish conquest of Cusco is not the end of the fighting, but it is the end of the empire. The great war machine of Tawantinsuyu, shattered and leaderless, breaks into factions. There are rebellions. There are sieges. There are new puppet Incas raised up and then cast down by the Spanish. But the outcome is never in doubt. The spine of the world, the great road that once held the empire together, is now the highway for its conquerors. You, the Chasqui who once ran that road, live through these years as a shadow, a ghost in your own land. You are no longer a messenger. The messages are all in a language you do not speak, about a world you do not understand. You survive. You watch. You remember. Decades pass. You grow from a young man scarred by the pox into an old man scarred by memory. The world is transformed. The Spanish have cemented their rule. Their new cities are built directly on top of the foundations of your old ones. Their language and their religion are now the law of the land. You live now in the city of Cusco, or what was once Cusco. It is a strange hybrid, a city of two souls at war with each other. You see magnificent Spanish colonial houses, with their carved wooden balconies and red-tiled roofs, built directly on top of the perfectly fitted, earthquake-proof stone walls of Incan palaces. The clumsy stonework of the conquerors sits atop the sublime masonry of the conquered. The entire city is a metaphor for your new reality. The great plaza where festivals were once held is now the Plaza de Armas, the holy Coricancha, the temple of the sun, the most sacred place in your universe, has been stripped of its golden plates. Its walls have been incorporated into a new, imposing building, the Church of Santo Domingo. You watch the Spanish priests hold their mass in the courtyard where your priests once sacrificed llamas to the sun god. You see your own people, the survivors, adapting with a quiet, stubborn resilience. This is a common historical fact in the aftermath of conquests. The conquered do not simply vanish. They find ways to preserve their own world within the world of their new masters. This blending of cultures is called syncretism. You see it everywhere. You see the people dutifully attending the Catholic Mass, but you also see them on their way to the church, stopping to whisper a prayer and leave a small offering of coca leaves at an ancient stone, a huaxa, that they still believe holds a powerful spirit. They learn to see the Virgin Mary as a new face for Pachamama, the Earth Mother. They give the Christian saints the attributes of their own local mountain gods. The Apus. They are weaving their old faith into the new one, hiding it in plain sight. The Spanish are obsessed with eradicating the old beliefs. Their priests preach against idolatry. Their soldiers are sent on expeditions into the high mountains, not for gold, but for a different kind of treasure, the Malqui, the sacred mummies of the dead Incan kings. This becomes an obscure but vital front in the spiritual war. The Spanish believe the mummies are idols, sources of pagan worship that must be destroyed. For your people, they are the living presence of your ancestors, the divine lineage of your world. Great efforts are made to hide the mummies, to move them from one secret cave to another, always one step ahead of the Spanish. The hunt for the dead kings is a hunt for the very soul of your people. You are now a grandfather. You have lived a quiet life, working a small plot of land outside the city. You have children and grandchildren who have been born into this new world. They speak Quechua at home, but they speak Spanish in the market. They know the names of the Christian saints, but they also know the names of the mountain spirits. They look at you, at the deep, pitted scars that cover your face and arms, and they know you are from the time before. They know you survived the Great Dying. The Great Dying. This is the term future historians will use for the catastrophic population collapse of the indigenous peoples of the Americas following the European arrival. They will debate its scale, but they will all agree it was the single greatest demographic disaster in human history. They will talk of smallpox, of measles, of influenza, of the brutality of the conquest. You do not need to debate it. You lived it. Your grandchildren ask you to tell them stories. They ask you what it was like. In the time of the Sapa Inca, you try to tell them. You try to describe the world you knew. You speak of the Great Road, teeming with runners and llamas. You speak of the storehouses, full to bursting. You speak of a world of order, of balance. They listen, but they cannot truly comprehend it. The world you describe is as alien to them as the world of the Spanish once was to you. One of your grandsons, a boy with your own dark eyes, asks you the question you have asked yourself 1,000 times. Grandfather, he says, how did so few bearded men conquer so many of our ancestors? You look at the boy, and you decide to tell him the real story. The one that is not about battles or brave warriors. You tell him about your life as a Chasqui. You tell him about the rumors from the coast. You tell him about your journey to the silent village of Machica. You describe the pox that had no name. You tell him about your own feverish flight back to Quito, an unwitting messenger of death. You tell him about the death of the great Huayna Capac and his heir, about the power vacuum that shattered the empire. You tell him of the civil war between two brothers that tore the world apart, a war that would never have happened if the sickness had not broken the line of succession. The Spanish did not arrive in a healthy, unified empire, you tell him, your voice low. They arrived in a ghost world, a world of empty villages and fallow fields, a world of grieving, terrified, and starving survivors. They walked into a house that was already burning. They were not great conquerors, and they were fortunate heirs to a catastrophe. This is the final, terrible truth you have come to understand. This is the story that the Spanish, with their tales of their own bravery and divine favor, will never tell. The true conqueror of the Incan Empire was not Pizarro. It was not steel. It was not the horse. It was the unseen enemy, the smallpox virus. You finish your story. The boy's quiet for a long time. He looks at the scars on your face with a new understanding. That evening, you take a slow walk up into the hills overlooking Cusco. The sun is setting behind the great mountain peak of Ausangate, painting the sky in shades of gold and deep purple. From here, you can see the whole valley, the new Spanish city nestled in the cradle of the old one. The sound of evening church bells drifts up to you on the cool air. You find a small, flat stone, a place that feels old and sacred. You take a few dried coca leaves from the small pouch you still carry, a habit from your long-forgotten life as a runner. You hold them to your mouth, blow on them gently, and you whisper a prayer. It is not a prayer to the Christian God, nor to the sun god Inti. It is a quiet word of thanks to the spirit of the mountain, the Apu, and to the memory of the ancestors who lie beneath its shadow. You look down at the city, at the lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering darkness. You have lived to see your world die, and you have lived to see a new one born from its ashes. Your life has been a long, miserable, and miraculous journey. You are a messenger who has finally, after a lifetime, understood the true message he was carrying, and now, at the end of things, you are at peace. The old man's prayer is carried away on the high, thin air of the Andes. The last light of the sun leaves the snow-capped peak of the mountain, and a deep, star-filled silence settles over the sacred valley. His story is finished. The ghosts of the past are at peace. The unseen conqueror has long since vanished, leaving behind only the scars, the memories, and the quiet, resilient pulse of a world that has endured. Let his story go now. Release it into the vast, quiet darkness of the mountains. Feel the thin, cool mountain air give way to the familiar, comforting warmth of your own room. The weight of an empire's fall is not yours to carry. The sorrow of a lost world is not yours to bear. Your only task now is to feel the gentle weight of your own body, the soft support of your bed, the easy, rhythmic rise and fall of your own breathing. Each breath is a quiet reassurance, a soft and steady whisper that you are here, you are safe, you are at peace. The silence that surrounds you now is not the eerie silence of a deserted village or the stunned silence of a city in ruins. It is a welcoming, healing silence, a space for your mind to rest and your body to relax. Let your thoughts soften and drift, becoming as light and as distant as the clouds over the high Andean peaks. You are floating now, untethered from the day, untethered from the story. You are simply drifting on a slow, gentle current toward the deep and dreamless ocean of sleep. There is nothing left to do, nothing to see, nothing to remember. There is only rest